Welcome back once more. This is Sunday edition. Gentlemen, let's wind it up with the 2019 outlook. But before we get into that, let's finish up on the Moses Kuria and Ruto conversation once and for all now. Dismas, you hadn't said your piece on Moses Kuria and his place in this whole matrix.
Yes, yeah. When you listen to Moses Kuria, you begin to wonder whether members of the National Assembly actually understand their role. Because the development agenda in Kenya is not dictated by one individual. It's the executive or the National Treasury which gives proposals, and they go to the National Assembly, and the MPs, Moses Kuria one of them, and Moses Kuria is in the leadership of the National Assembly. They're the ones who determine how the resources are going to be allocated.
Right. Now,
in case there's no water, in case there's no electricity in Gatundu or in Kiambu, the person in fact to blame is Moses Kuria, nobody else. Because these are the members of the National Assembly. They're the ones who allocate resources. So for our MPs, and it's not just limited to Moses Kuria, because I see MPs all over saying, let's go speak to President Kenyatta and tuletea maendeleo. Now that Raila Odinga is in government, tuongee na baba tuletea maendeleo. Or let's go to Sugoi. They should run away from that mischief and know they've got powers at the National Assembly to determine how the resources are going to be used. And it's the right time for people to look at Moses Kuria and company and say, you are taking us for a ride and you cannot cheat us for a long time. I think that's the first point. Then the second point, of course, is the internal succession. After Moses Kuria spoke about that, then we are told that a few days, I'm not sure there is a case, that his brother was fired. So again, you begin to ask yourself, is this the kind of leadership we have in Kiambu, that if a member of your staff, his brother says something which is unacceptable to you, then it takes liability. That again is unacceptable. So in my view going forward, maybe the Speaker of the National Assembly, he needs to take these MPs for another induction program, for them to understand that their primary responsibility is to allocate resources. If we don't do that, we are going to have endless trips to all manner of homes, all manner of cities, of MPs going. You know, it's very disappointing from a village when MPs say that we are going to look for Ruto because we want Maendeleo, or we want to go to State House because we want Maendeleo. And they've got powers at the National Assembly. Why can't the Speaker organize another refresher course for them so that they are able to understand exactly what is going on?
All right. Final thoughts?
Before I even address my final thoughts, there is something Dismas Mokua said that must not be allowed to go without being given the right footnotes. One, Dismas must understand that members of parliament have three roles: legislate, oversight, and represent.
Right.
Represent here in the coached in the constitutional terms means that the people of Kiambu County, the people of Gatundu, cannot all of them pick a microphone and speak their problems. We might not have time to listen to them. Which means whatever they are thinking in their own groups, Moses Kuria has been given the mandate to say. So we might not say whatever Kuria said is the truth, but he has that role given legally to represent those people.
Right.
And the other thing you must realize that whereas Moses Kuria is in parliament where they allocate resources, 70% of those resources remain with the national government. It is in Moses Kuria and in any elected leader to make sure that those resources reach those places. You might allocate a road in the budget, but it doesn't exist in the real place. So it is up to them to ask the leaders, cabinet secretaries, the deputy president, and the president that it did not happen. Coming back to what I expect in 2019, one, this is the year that, it is the year that it will make or break Jubilee. Whether Jubilee died with the handshake and whatever we are seeing is the skeleton or the carcass, we will prove this year. And in the making or breaking of Jubilee, the other person who is attached to that is the deputy president. His fortunes or lack of it thereof is how we will handle how the Jubilee politics is. Secondly, I'll be watching with a keen eye the following individuals. William Kafogo, because of how he has been acting lately, he has been sending mixed signals. The other person who I'll be watching closely will be Mudavadi. He is the person who...
What do you expect from Kabogo? Come back as governor to...
No. How he has crafted and how he has made the narrative around himself, he has thrown himself or thrusted himself into the national politics. Going back to the governor will be retreating too low. He has now to continue going forward.
Right.
Because when you look at what he has been engaging in, he has been engaging in national conversation. And to Mudavadi, I'll expect Mudavadi to exploit the space that was found within the handshake and to further his presidential campaign, and to come out now as a stronger and now to show up his charisma going forward. And the last person that I'll expect also to see a lot happening around him, if his advisors are in the right place, is Gideon Moi.
All right.
Because with the handshake, Gideon Moi can access each and every part of this country and sell his would-be candidature in 2022. But also there is another thing that it is worth watching, the census, the 2019 census.
Right.
I think Kenyans and counting are allergic to each other, because just a matter of counting 1, 2, 3, I think we have started politicizing the whole process, and if we are not careful, census 2019 will make or break 2022.
Okay. Hesbon Oila, what are your expectations?
I think there's a lot that will happen in 2019. First, I think we're expecting findings from the Building Bridges initiative. I think they'll come up with their findings, their recommendations, and I want to believe that it's going to change the political landscape. There's also the issue of economics. The first tranche of the 2014 Eurobond is due this year, and I think it's going to shake our economy. But speaking politically, my understanding is that given that I've been a big fan of Raila Odinga's, reform agenda since I started following him, I want to believe that the handshake between himself and the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, will actually usher us into a new dispensation that is characterized by a just electoral system. And I want to believe that that is what the Building Bridges initiative will then birth. And to a large extent, I'm looking at, a situation where this, and this is hopeful, this is what I hope, where this Building Bridges initiative will give us a system that will benefit Kenyans, so much so that even if the big names that Kipchumba has mentioned, Gideon Moi, the Deputy President, Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga,
Yes.
are presented to us in an election, it will not matter who wins, because the electoral system will be so just, transparent, and verifiable, such that it will be the will of the Kenyan people. That is my expectation.
All right. Mark, what should Kenyans expect?
This is going to be a country full of drama, full of chaos, and full of selfish ambition. The first phase of selfish ambition shall be unleashed with the census, because people are already being told, when you are asked how many family members you have, say 60 instead of 6, so that your tribe can be seen to be larger. That is the fight that we've seen, especially with the arid and semi-arid areas versus the places with a higher population. Then that will lead into the fight of the delineation of boundaries and therefore the allocation of resources. It's going to be a huge, huge fight.
There are people who say that since the last census, they've multiplied a lot. That is a fallacy.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Whether it is true or not, it's going to be tested today. So whoever is going to run the census has his job cut out for him.
Right.
The other thing is the political drama in this country is not about to end. And the sad thing is, my prediction is by the end of this year, we will have a lot of mania and phobia, and people will retreat into unthinking tribal cocoons, and they will begin to take sides. My last prediction is that we're not going to have a referendum this year. I predict it for 2020, simply because we cannot afford it. And the reasons why Murathe and Ilk are testing these things is so that they can be able to present the question that will be important in 2020. The people to watch for me, Gideon Moi. If one, he actually hires a strategist worth his salt, and if he actually decides to campaign, because what he's been doing is dipping his feet in the baby end of the pool. Mudavadi, to see whether he'll continue to reinvent himself. William Ruto, if he will change tact and decide to address the issues, to seem like he has a coalition of equals and not a coalition of sycophants.
Right.
And to see whether Raila Odinga is going to stick to his script and say that he's not going to run in 2022.
All right.
For me, maybe expectations that the census is not going to be conducted by the voodoo mathematics at IBC, that it's actually going to be biometric, so that we, for a fact, we know how many Kenyans are. You remember when Moses Kuria spoke about this, he was told he's got 2 kids, and then an MP from a pastoralist community said he's got 7 and counting. The only way to verify is to go biometric. That would be number 1. Then number 2, there is this expectation that the National Assembly, the Senate, would actually identify our national interest and our public interest and pursue them. Yeah. And I'd like to request the Deputy President, Dr. Ruto, the passion, the energy, and the vigor that he uses to do his campaigns, saying he's assisting the president run the nation, can he direct it now towards economics, so that his passion is actually reflected in our pockets, so that the maize farmers who are his neighbors do not keep on crying every day, and then he tells them to go and plant avocados. Then also expect President Kenyatta to be very firm, that if he needs to fire some incompetent members in his cabinet, let him do so. Because if he doesn't do that, at the end of the day, when he leaves office, when you look at the scoreboard, we'll blame President Kenyatta. We'll not know that Echesa was in the cabinet, or Amina Mohamed was in the cabinet, or Bichache was not in the cabinet. The buck stops with him. And the people that we expect to keep the president on his feet, actually put his feet on the fire, is Musalia Mudavadi. He's been very proactive on the issues of the national debt and the way the economy has been managed. We expect that he's going to mainstream that conversation and make sure that he repeats it times above number. Right. Because really that's where the rubber meets the road. Right. You know, you can do all politics till the cows come home, but if you're going home to sleep on an empty tummy, then it doesn't count for anything. Right. And also, let's start having our politics anchored on Chapter 6. And I know Bichache has been talking about these people stealing cows or people stealing goats, but let's go to Chapter 6 and ask ourselves, what kind of leaders are we looking for? Because there's a very high chance Kenyans right now are suffering from buyer's remorse. You are told to elect people into office because maybe of Kumira or Tibim, and now we are suffering buyer's remorse, and those guys cannot deliver. And we've got ourselves to blame. In my view, as a nation, we need to identify our selfish interests and pursue them. You know, it's very disturbing when you are told that Rwanda is about to overtake Kenya in terms of conferences and tourism. Rwanda is about to overtake Kenya. When we are told that Ethiopia, with a young man who is probably Bichache's age, is turning the economy around, attracting a lot of foreign investments. And as a giant in the nation, we are dead asleep, and we think that we are going to rest on our laurels till the cows come home. It's unacceptable. Right. I think really the buck stops with President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, because when you look at that scoreboard as indicated in 2022, if there's anything which has gone wrong, then he's the person to blame. Right. And it serves Ruto's interest to minimize delegations going to see him and support the president's agenda. Because when we look at that scoreboard, it will be a joint ticket. All right, this must have said what you expect from Uhuru Kenyatta. Mark, what do you expect from the Kenyatta administration in 2019?
I think Uhuru Kenyatta needs to become very serious about his legacy. Number one, he needs to make sure that the cases that he has in court against the fight against corruption, he has to make sure they are watertight, so even a judge who's corrupt cannot find a reason to dismiss those cases. It is very critical that he delivers, because the net effect of failing against the fight against corruption is corruption will come back with its babies and grandchildren, and then we'll have a bigger monster to fight. The second thing, Uhuru Kenyatta has to put his eyes on the prize. His prize is delivering to Kenyans a transformative country by 2022. If his Big Four agenda is not going to be fulfilled, then he needs to revise it, make it Big One or Big Two, but he needs to have a project and a paradigm shift that he can show to Kenyans that he has done. He must have it within his mind that he's going to be the youngest president ever to retire in this country. And for 40 years, we'll be here to remind him that he failed as a leader. So he needs to be very careful, and he needs to focus on that, as indeed he said he's focused on it. But he cannot seem to be focused on it the way he wakes up one day as though he's been in slumber to go and tell off his cabinet secretary. No. That cannot be. You cannot be surprised with us that your cabinet secretary has not told you what he has not done what you told him to do. So he needs to become more proactive. He needs to be more visible, right, and he needs to be more hands-on the way he was hands-on with the marine part of the army that he was doing the other day.
Hesbon, what will Kenyans see from President Kenyatta?
I think two things that I expect from Uhuru Kenyatta, and I want to believe Kenyans will be very happy with. One is that he needs to launch the Big Four agenda, and we need to see it take off. and probably have a team that will see the Big Four agenda as soon as possible. Now, the second and the most important, I think, Uhuru Kenyatta owes Kenyans this. I think the Right Honorable Raila Odinga has given him the platform. The handshake has given him everything. He owes Kenyans an electoral system that will help us get our choice in the person who is going to replace him. That we just need an electoral system that is predictable but will give us unpredictable results.
Right.
After the election, we can verify that the person who is going to replace Uhuru Kenyatta is actually the person that Kenyans voted for. If he gives us that, I think it will be a big legacy for him.
Kipchumba, what do you expect from the president? Very quickly.
Number one, he should stop whining with the president, the CEO of the country. He has we gave him a sword and all that appertains to lead this country. If Bichachi, his cabinet secretary, is not delivering, he should be sacked. The other thing, the fight on corruption, he should make sure that it's not weaponized. If we are fighting corruption, it should go beyond optics, because one of his legacies will be how well he handled corruption.
Right.
And if we'll ever talk about fighting corruption, Uhuru Kenyatta will be a footnote. And finally, he must realize that one of a default legacy of a president is leaving behind a united and a cohesive nation. Raila Odinga has given him the chance to do that. He should use that platform to make sure that he is not remembered as the president that took Kenya to China and left it there.
All right. Let me just take a look at 2 or 3 of your comments. Collins Ogutu says he agrees with what Mark Bichache says. There's nothing wrong with being against Ruto. Kennedy Mukadi says the DP has the best chance of occupying State House in 2022, but only if he quits Jubilee as soon as possible. He needs to do so before the cabinet reshuffle. And Mutai says, I concur. Just as we voted Jubilee to the last man because of him, we have as well discovered that we did a mistake. Paul Ondeng says there are moments when a betrayal is a necessary evil for self-preservation. Politicians can only retain relevance when they wield power directly or by proxy. And finally, Lankas McRae says this is politics of interest and not matters conjugal rights. Alluding to what Mark Bichache just said. And finally, one very eloquent one from Julius Obosweti says, Moses Kuria is leading a mock rebellion from the mountain to satisfy Dr. Ruto's handlers that we, the leadership from Central, have kept our promise. Murathe and Moses Kuria are reading a well-scripted play from one master, but they're acting differently. Game Kwisha. Well, we will see what happens. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming and being with me for the first show of the year. Kipchumba Karori, lawyer and political strategist, political analyst, Hesbon Owila and Mark Bichache, and the Duke of Mosochi himself, this is Smoko. Let's do this again next Sunday, and every Sunday this year, 2019. Be sure to join us for Kenya's premier Sunday morning political show, Sunday edition, as we dissect for